before this past year. So San Francisco yesterday and over the last couple of days has done what's very hard to do. They walked away from really, really good players and acknowledged, yeah, we worked really hard. We got to a bunch of Super Bowls and NFC championships. We didn't get a trophy, and we're not going to get one with this group. So they let good players go. Kyle Juszczyk's been a Pro Bowler 8 years. Greenlaw, the linebacker. Ward, the corner. Aaron Banks, Hufunga, the safety. Deebo Samuel. They just said, listen, we had a stacked roster. We got close, a bunch. We didn't win. I would have done this last season. I said going into this year, the Cowboys and the Niners, regression was going to begin, and they have both absolutely peaked. So I think they did it a year late, and I think 1 year from now, they have 12 draft picks this year, San Francisco does. And I think next year at this time, Trent Williams, Kittle, Christian McCaffrey, maybe Fred Warner are in the same space that these guys they all let go are in. They got bloated, they got loose in negotiations, and the Los Angeles Rams, their primary rival, running a tighter ship, sailed by them. I think signing Deebo and Brandon Ayuk to big deals is a mistake, and they would acknowledge it now. Both guys are talented, but a lot of injuries, and they're chatty. The moral to the San Francisco story. So what's the moral to this? Great quarterbacks win Super Bowls. You can have a very good head coach, Kyle Shanahan. You can have a great roster. Last 5 or 6 years, San Francisco. And you're going to come up empty. The Rams, it's different. Rams had a 2-time Pro Bowl quarterback in Jared Goff, a quarterback that got to the Super Bowl, Jared Goff, and they did not settle. Brock Purdy negotiations are vital. Garoppolo, not great. One pass, win a Super Bowl, missed. Brock Purdy, smaller, injured a couple times. Not great in inclement weather, which you often get in December and January. So a 6-year run, no trophy, a lot of Super Bowls, conference championship games, stacked roster, great coach.
Okay. There's a lot here, guys. There's a lot here. I want to try to break this down in the most nuanced way possible because we're having some revisionist history here, and football really is. We always say, "Oh, it's a game of inches." It's not even a game of inches, man. It's a game of millimeters. I mean, it really is. Okay, you want to pray? Let's just start with this, and we're gonna really go deep on this one because there is a lot being said. First off, I want to start in so many different places right now because my mind is about to just kind of erupt here. Okay. Let's just start with the Rams because now he's praising the Rams and elevating the Rams to the moon right now, okay? First off, the Rams with Stafford went to 1 Super Bowl, okay? And they were very fortunate enough to play the Cincinnati Bengals and not the Kansas City Chiefs, okay? That alone is now a major benefit. Who has been the better team for the last, 7, 8 years? The Chiefs or the Bengals? You tell me. Who's more prepared and ready to win a Super Bowl? Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, and Spags? Or Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals? You tell me. You tell me. We know that answer. We know that answer. So that alone is a major advantage for the Rams to be able to get in the Super Bowl. Not to mention, they were very fortunate that the decisions that they made really worked out for them because the two of the big decisions that they were making where they went after and got OBJ and they went out and got Von Miller, like both those players pretty much only had like 1 year left and they just kind of like, ever since that 1 year, it really hasn't been the same. And they were very fortunate to be able to just get that last little juice out, which there was no guarantee that was actually going to happen. And again, kudos to the Rams for making that happen. Truly, kudos to the Rams. But let's be easy here on this one. Because what's more impressive that the 49ers were able to get to the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo? Yeah, I think that's wildly impressive. Wildly impressive. And then Brock Purdy got injured in the NFC Championship game against the Eagles because that Eagles pass rush was just dominant. They knocked out multiple quarterbacks in the same game. I mean that they just went up against a defense for the Eagles at that time that was just getting after quarterbacks. So you're going to blame Brock Purdy for getting injured in that moment? Like that's kind of absurd. That doesn't really make sense. Then you have the following year where they're able to run it back and now get to the Super Bowl. And yes, if Brock Purdy played 5% better, I think they can win that game for sure. But they still had to go up against the number one defense in the NFL, along with obviously Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, etc. And then they had a series of flukes, a series of just misfortunate, unfortunate events that just all of these things needed to happen ultimately for the 49ers to now lose in overtime. You know, as the first part of overtime was winding down. I mean, so like literally so deep into this Super Bowl, you know, near essentially as close to the finish line as it can get. You had to have a random muff punt. You had to have a random fumble by Christian McCaffrey. You needed to have Greenlaw, you know, get injured running onto the field. I mean, it was just a whole collection. I wish I still had those notes, but it's definitely been thrown away. It was a whole collection of just like bizarre events where you're just like, oh my gosh, if just one of those things doesn't happen, they win the Super Bowl. And then there you go. So to kind of just lump this all on the 49ers and try to say like the reason why they lost is solely because of like X or something, it's just not true. Because then look what you're saying about Jimmy Garoppolo. It's kind of perfect. Well, then the Kansas City Chiefs only won because Jimmy Garoppolo missed that pass. Well, that's pretty fortunate for the Chiefs then. Then the Chiefs only beat the Eagles because, Jalen Hurts fumbled. Well, that's pretty convenient for the Chiefs then. You know, the Chiefs only beat the 49ers because I just went through a whole list of things because they played Brock Purdy, and Brock Purdy's not good enough, apparently. You know, the 49ers just make bad decisions. So seems pretty fortunate then. So you can't just zero in on this one like kind of like singular point or saying that the 49ers should have done what they're doing this year, last year. I mean, that's kind of absurd. The team got decimated with injuries, obviously. But the team in 22 NFC Championship game. And then 23 Super Bowl, seemingly a play away or just one less, you know, bad luck, mistake, however you want to define it, from winning that Super Bowl. And then this past year, just injuries nonstop. So it's just I don't understand, you know, really. And yeah, they essentially ran out of money, and John Middlecoff kind of highlighted this because he kind of talked about how the 49ers at the oh my god, I can't think what it's called, but you know, essentially they were just saying like, hey, you know what, we're gonna have to spend a lot, you know, less money right now, essentially. And so yeah, they're making tough decisions. But I mean, it's funny to praise the Rams, and I would never be able to find the combine is what I was thinking. But it's really funny to praise the Rams in this situation. And again, I think the Rams are an incredibly well-run organization. You know, they've been a top team in the NFL for the last like 10 years in terms of management. So not disputing that at all. But it's just really funny how the Rams decided to essentially mortgage their future, go all in for a Super Bowl, win. Then they seemingly collapsed and had to pay the consequences. And people were just like, yeah, this is just the way it goes. And then we essentially erase some of that and just act like everything they do is just fire, that there's no other drawbacks. There's no other like post-mortem of just kind of like, you know, everything's got pros and cons, and they were able to come away with the Super Bowl and this and that. And, you know, now things are kind of bleak right now for the time being, but, you know, it's going to take them a second to kind of like rebuild and get back in order. You know, they're dealing with an old, aging, injury-prone Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. They should have moved on from Cooper Kupp last year. If they moved on from Cooper Kupp last year, maybe they beat the Philadelphia Eagles and they win. You understand what I'm saying? But like that wasn't the talk. That wasn't the talk. And so now that the 49ers are making appropriate moves that they need to, based off of being injured, kind of like how the Rams were a couple years ago as well. Like I don't understand the comparison of why we're just so quick to elevate the Rams over the 49ers in that regard of like, well, look, the Rams are doing it great. They're smart and the 49ers aren't. And it's like, yeah, the Rams were able to come away with that Super Bowl. I get it. Absolutely, positively. I get it. I do. But to act like that the 49ers, that the Rams are just on this like other level above the 49ers in terms of like how they're being run, it just doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. Because you could make the argument that since 2019 that the 49ers have been, a more competitive, better team. Again, I understand they didn't come away with that Super Bowl, but as Brew always highlights, like even the Rams, the way how they won that Super Bowl, they were a drop pass away from I think a dropped interception, whatever it was that Brew always says, where it's like the Rams could have never even been to the Super Bowl, and so again, it's such a fine line from winning that ring and not, unless it's an actual like dominant win, right? Like the Eagles versus the Chiefs. But even that, they were just one pass away from losing to the Rams, and then who knows, right? That then maybe then it doesn't unfold that way. So it's just, I don't know. This is not the time to try to do a victory lap on the demise of the 49ers. Like, we can talk about the moves that they're making, but to try to frame it in the sense of like, well, they made mistakes this past season and now they're doing things wrong. Now they're kind of backing themselves in a corner, and now let's look at their last 5-6 years and just be like, it didn't really work. Like, yeah, they had a great roster, but they couldn't come away with the win. And it's like, okay, like, again, like, let's settle down here. In that Super Bowl, they played the 10-7 Bengals, and the score was 23-20. Okay, they had to face a coach. They got to face a coach and quarterback that was their biggest game of their entire career. Whereas the Chiefs, when they played the 49ers, it was just another game for them. They've already been there. Andy Reid has already been there. Stafford. Let's not act like, yeah, did he have some nice plays? He had that no-look pass, absolutely great. Came up big when it mattered. Also had 2 interceptions. Had an 89.9 rating. So again, it's not like he got a lot from the run game. I don't feel like going back too deep in this game, because then we also know OBJ went down, and if OBJ stayed healthy, would have maybe been a little bit more successful, etc., etc. But like, they went up against Joe Burrow, who really didn't get a lot going on. That run game didn't have a lot going on. I mean, it's just different, man. Just different. Like, it's always funny to me when people want to try to act like that Chiefs team in 2019 like wasn't a complete team when they were averaging 19.3 points per game, points against, 7th best defense, 5th best offense, averaging 28.2 points per game. Like, that team wasn't, special balling. Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, in their prime, etc., etc. And again, the Rams got to face 17th defense. It's just different levels to that. And then in 2023, I mean, that Chiefs defense was averaging 17 points. 17 points. So, yeah. All of these things matter. All of these things add up. And yeah, listen, I think the 49ers are a very well-run franchise. They know that they wanted to take another shot this past year. It was unfortunate They got decimated with injuries. Things unraveled. Just is what it is. I think even if they were healthy, they probably still would have not been able to come away with come out of the NFC. It would have been very difficult for them to get out of the NFC just because obviously the Eagles were such a dominant, great team. But again, you never know. Once you're playing head to head, who really knows? Any given Sunday, But, if the 49ers were fortunate enough to play a Chiefs team healthy, actually, it's just like, again, who knows what that looks like again in maybe the Super Bowl. We saw it during the regular season, but at that point, honestly, both teams were a mess, quite frankly. But the 49ers were clearly not the 49ers who we know them to be. So, yeah, I don't know. I think we can talk about all the moves that the 49ers are making without just the painting of the picture of just like, these last 5 years weren't really that good. Yeah, they kind of really fumbled it. They failed. They didn't set out to achieve what they were trying to achieve, and et cetera, et cetera. And I just think that's too limited way to look at it, quite frankly. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the 49ers? How do you think they move forward from here? And what's your reflections now, I guess, on the last, 5, 6, 7 years, whatever timeline you want to use? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're well on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.